Welcome back to Focus Today, and boy, I need to talk to this guy. I need his encouragement. I am so delighted to have back with us today Dr. Gerard Lameiro. He's the author of Great News for America, a must-read, and he's the guy that predicted the outcome of the primary elections the way they did, and he is saying we're heading towards what could be a tremendous conservative landslide. I just need to hear it again. Dr. Lameiro, good to see you, my friend. How are you?
I am doing great, and I think America will be doing really great after the election.
Well, I just want to dig into that with you a little bit. Thanks so much. I am concerned. I'll show you my concerns. I'm watching the Electoral College map. I'm sure you are too. I'm watching some of the polls. I'm sure you are too. We're going into the second debate on Sunday night. I kind of think that's going to be the important one for Donald Trump. He's got to really score on this one coming up on Sunday. The president's rating's an all-time high, 55% approval rating, while Congress is 14% and the media is 8%. Help me out here.
Well, first of all, I urge you to read the polls cautiously, because I don't think they're accurately representing where the public stands. You know, I always say the polls are the tip of the iceberg. And if you study geology or whatever subject, wherever icebergs come up, they tell you 8/9 of the iceberg is below the water. And I think that's true of the election data. You know, things like voter intensity, voter momentum, and lots of other variables. One of my blog posts a few weeks ago, I listed some of the variables I put into my analysis, and there are a lot of variables, and polls only represent a snapshot of a limited group of people, about 1,500. Usually it's plus or minus 5% for sampling error, but there's non-sampling error, there's bias, there's all sorts of other things that go into the polls. And in recent years, where we didn't have historic presidential elections, they were off too. And the Brexit vote, the polls were off. The day before Brexit, they had Brexit losing instead of won. And it won by the same margin they thought it was going to lose by. So that shows you something. So I would say read them with a grain of salt. I can try to give you, if you like, what I think is the current state of the election.
Well, let's get into that a little bit. How do you read polls? Because I know you analyze them different and you looked at different polls than most of those that are quoted in the media. Where do you go for your sources?
Oh, I go to all sorts of places. There are different reporting organizations like the Secretaries of States for the various states. There are all sorts of data sources out there that you can look to. Some of the important things I look to, for example, is voter intensity, especially this year, because this is a historic election year. And you remember, I think I defined for you in a previous program that voter intensity is essentially this. If someone says they're going to vote for Hillary Clinton today, will they actually turn out and vote for Hillary Clinton in time for the election by November 8th? And if you have strong voter intensity, such as Trump has, you're almost guaranteed 99% of them who say they're going to vote for Trump will actually vote for Trump. Hillary's voter intensity is extraordinarily low. People, even Democrats who officially support her in the polls, will tell you, if you talk to them and interview them, they'll say things like, but you know, I think she's corrupt. And you know, I don't believe her most of the time. And you know, I may not really vote. And so that's a whole different type of voter intensity number. And basically, that's very, very important. Her intensity is still very low, and a lot of people may not support her. One example I like to give is the black vote. In Ohio, a critical state, which right now looks like it's going to go for Trump, in 2012, the last presidential election, Barack Obama, not surprisingly, got 93% of the black vote in Ohio. This time around, Hillary may get 65 to 70%. Where's the rest going? Well, 20% may go to Donald Trump, which in and of itself is pretty remarkable. But then maybe another 10% or so may just plain stay home, because they're buying the argument that the Democrats have not really done much for inner city blacks, and for that matter, for blacks in general. And you're hearing people say, I heard one lady this morning say, a black leader, saying, you know, I've been voting Democrat for 20 years, and I still don't see any results. I don't see any of our problems solved. So with that type of voter intensity, people sometimes stay home.
That is very interesting. And I agree with you. The Brexit vote was an example how quickly and how dramatically a poll could be wrong. Because if you think about the Brexit vote, everything, and the media over there was controlled. The BBC was pounding it hard. And yet, when it came time to vote, it failed. That is huge. And I would assume that Trump has gotten to where he is in this election cycle because the American people have had enough of career politicians. Does that carry over into November?
Absolutely. That is part of what's driving the historic nature of this particular election. Another thing, remember the book, and I think you probably by now have gotten through my whole book, The Great News for America. Remember, I predicted the end of the mainstream media's influence on the presidential election as we've known it. And I think that's right now happening. People are looking at these moderators at these polls, and they're saying, wow, this isn't biased. This is almost like they're working for the Democratic Party. So people are discounting the mainstream media big time. And let me say something else. It's also in the book, by the way. And that is the 1896 election. That was very historic, a critical presidential elections. The political parties were realigned. But remember this, and that is, in any historic presidential election, there's a change in the importance of a particular media. And back in 1896, the old media was sort of pushed aside, and the new media was something called the big urban newspaper. You remember those, like Scripps and Pulitzer and some of those people, Hearst, that created big city newspapers. And there was also the rise of magazines. And they had an influence on the 1896 election. This year, we're seeing the demise of the mainstream media and the rise to its full blossoming and full potential of talk radio, which is almost entirely conservative, and social media. Folks like Drudge with his, what does he get? Billions of clicks? It's amazing how many people go to Drudge every day, including myself, to get news and scan the headlines. And so people are selectively picking lots of different news sites based on whether or not they think they're getting accurate information, and they do not believe and no longer believe the mainstream media is in any way fair or accurate.
You bring up a great point, because the lowest rating out there is the media. It's down around 8%. It's even lower than Congress right now, which is 14%. So you kind of wonder if in the future you're going to see candidates holding their own debate and selecting neutral moderators that don't represent the media. I mean, that would be a real switch.
Yeah, I really believe the debate as we know it, Lester Holt, the newest VP debate too, those were very biased moderators. Just hard to believe, feeding questions that were one-sided, cutting Mike Pence off, for example. And of course, Cain cut off Pence. One count was 72 times, another count was 70 times. People don't like that. And I think we should go to more Lincoln Douglas type debates where there you have two candidates. Somebody says start, and you let them go and let them question each other, or let them point out holes in their arguments. Let them truly debate. Every time in the VP debate that we watched recently, every time they started to touch the topic and get past all the interruptions, she'd say, "Sorry, time to go on to the next question," as if, her question was more important than getting to the previous answer. Just utterly ridiculous. They'd finally be talking about Social Security answers and something substantive, and she'd say, "Well, time to go to North Korea." It's...
Quick question before we take a break, Dr. Lameiro, and that is, do you think most people by now have made up their mind?
That's an excellent question. The answer is no, believe it or not. There's probably, let's see, do some quick calculations in my head. There are probably 5% out of the 10% that are touring with either Gary Johnson or Jill Stein that will actually move to either Hillary or Trump. So those 5%, that's of the total population of voters, will not make their final decision. They're tentatively saying Johnson or Stein. There's another 5% that are truly undecided. The question is how many of them will actually vote for anybody. They may all sit home, or they may make last-minute decisions. Then there are the people who are sort of wavering, the low-intensity voters. And those are mostly Hillary Clinton voters who don't really like her in terms of her character. And character is a very big issue. If you read the 10 Laws for Winning Presidential Elections, which I wrote about 15 years ago, character is a huge issue for the American people for the presidency. And those people may drop off. That in itself is one of the reasons why I think this election could be a major landslide. Even though it doesn't look that way in the polls, I bet on the polls being wrong.
All right, let me take a quick break. What a delight to have back with us Dr. Gerard Lameiro. By the way, his book is entitled Great News for America. There's a picture of it on the screen. Check it out at the bookstores. You can Google it. This is a must-read. I've gone through it. I've had a low night, a low moment, and I needed a little punch. I'll pick up his book and get back on track. We'll be right back with him in just a moment.
I'm Paulina Leiser, producer of Focus Today. Thank you for watching this video, and make sure to check our other videos at theDove.us.
Welcome back. What a delight. Wish I had him for about 3 hours, but we don't. Dr. Lameiro's with us. He's an author, a philosopher, an economist, an engineer. His latest book is a must-read, Great News for America. He makes 10 predictions. We're going to go over that real quick. He's on talk shows all over the place. He does about 300 media interviews a year, but now he's made it to the big time. He's on the Dove.
Actually, more like 400 a year.
400? Well, when do you sleep?
It keeps going up. It keeps going up.
I can see why. You're an encourager. You made some great predictions in the Great News for America. You're thinking it's a critical presidential election, but you think it'll be historic in the turnout. You say the end of the Republican Party, a conservative election landslide, the end of the media, mainstream media, and within the first term of the new president, 4 conservative justices will be appointed. Those are pretty bold statements.
Yeah, and I back them up with information and from a lot of research. I did a tremendous amount of research for this particular book, but I've been researching the presidency for years and years and years. And even though I worked more as an economist and also as an engineer, I have always been working every 4 years on the election, the presidential election.
The end of the Republican Party. What Republican Party? The old establishment, the Rhino type?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, if anyone doubts that the Republican Party as we know it is over, just consider the fact that the elder statesmen of the Republican Party, the Bushes and many others from the party, didn't even attend their convention, as if it were a totally different party. And in fact, it is. Trump will replace almost everyone. in the RNC that does not align with his views and with his new outlook on managing the Republican Party, if the name even stays that. It could easily, as I mentioned in the book, be called the Conservative Party. His principles and his policies are largely conservative, and it could be called the Trump Party. I've heard it called the New Trump Party, the Trump Party, and the Conservative Party so far, and they haven't even officially changed the name.
So you think Reince Priebus is out?
He's actually done a very good job. He may be the one person who stays, but a lot of other folks, I think, who are associated with the old Republican guard, I think they'll be gone.
What about the Democratic Party?
Actually, it's also changing, and I predicted in the book, and it's happening, the end of the Democratic Party as we know it. Now, you don't see that as well today, although you've got a hint of it because of Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders took the Democratic Party by storm, and if it weren't for over 500 superdelegates who were committed to Hillary ahead of time, and if it weren't for the DNC, as we know through email revelations, tilting the scale for Hillary, she would not even be the nominee. They would have selected Bernie Sanders. It's amazing how if you take away the superdelegates, who are really the old party establishment, how basically Sanders would have had this election. So guess what? If my predictions are correct and she loses this election in a major way, this party, the Democratic Party that we knew, is going to be totally thrown up in the air. The cards will be thrown up in the air, and how they fall down is difficult to know, but my prediction is it'll end as we know it. It will likely turn into either a progressive party or a socialist party or a progressive socialist party. It'll be led by people like Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders, and it's going to be totally off the left, off the deep end on the left. It'll become a minority party for a generation.
Oh, if you were here, I'd hug you. All right, let me ask you this. Of all the things and opportunities that Donald Trump missed in the last debate, he did get one thing out that was brilliant from my perspective. And he got out and he said, this economy is a bubble and it's going to burst. Now, maybe you can explain that, but it appears to me that I would want a guy that knows how to read a balance sheet and a P&L to manage the budget when it does. Your thoughts?
Well, I think that he has surrounded himself with very good economists, people that I respect. And because of that, I think he's going to get good advice on how to deal with the bubbles that are in the economy. Let's face it, there are bubbles in the economy. This economy has been run essentially as a progressive socialist policy experiment. They have done all sorts of things with the Federal Reserve that, in my opinion, are foolish, and eventually it's going to have to unwind. The debt that they've created, the qualitative easing, the ZIRP, Z-I-R-P, the zero interest rate policy, big mistake. Eventually, the economy is going to have to ring through those mistakes, and usually that's some type of recession. I think a recession may initially happen, but when the economy works its way out, the market always works things out for us if you don't tamper with it too much and regulate it too much. And once the policies are unwound and the new economy can generate itself, we are going to have boom times ahead. I predict at least 3.5% GDP if his policies, including tax and regulatory and monetary policies, are put into place. Donald Trump could be the greatest boom to this economy we've ever had. Hillary Clinton's tax policy, more than $1 trillion tax increase, and that she says it's just for the rich. Let me tell you, a lot of other people are going to be paying for her plan, and it would send us into another great recession, if not depression. We're already hovering on a recession right now. Hillary Clinton, I think, would guarantee to torpedo this economy.
Donald Trump's been pretty firm and outspoken on his trade policies and bringing jobs back to the point where some people are saying it's going to be an international public relations disaster. But on the other hand, How else is he going to get these jobs back into the United States? What's your thinking about his trade policy?
My thinking on his trade policy is the following. If these trade deals were so good, why are they secret? My guess is it's crony capitalism, where you don't really let people know. I mean, the Congress people, they had to go into the basement of the Capitol, not allowed to take a photocopy of any of the pages of the agreements. They're kept secret from the American citizens, which I think is ridiculous, even kept secret from the Congress people, because they only get to glance at it. Nobody has time to read these pages and pages. And that. So my feeling is he's right on with the trade. It should be open. It should be fair. It should be equal. Saying something is for free trade doesn't mean it's free trade. It looks to me like this is free trade for crony capitalists, and I'm not. I'm in favor of capitalism when it's free market. I'm not in favor of giving certain people, especially donors, favored status. And I think the people who are criticizing Donald Trump are the very ones who will lose from having a free market.
Are you surprised that Hillary Clinton, with all the scandals, and especially now we see the Department of Justice and the FBI compromised in protection of her, that she is still doing so well? What is it about the American electorate that we could possibly put a criminal in the White House?
Well, first of all, I don't think it's going to happen, and that's also going to be one of the reasons for the demise of the Democratic Party as we know it. The establishment will be gone because of this election and making the mistake of running her as a candidate. I think the reason is some people vote without thinking. They vote because they've been doing it. Momentum is a hard thing to change. Inertia is a hard thing to change. People are used to voting Democrat. They have it in the back of their head that the Democrat is for the little guy. There are minorities who think the Democratic Party is for minorities, even though they haven't had any results and they're being taken granted. Their voting is being taken for granted. So I think there are things like that. And I also think people just buy negative talk. You say, oh, he's terrible, he didn't pay enough taxes. And so they just go along with it. They have a negative outlook on things. However, the truth is like water. It always reaches its optimum level. And the truth comes out. And even Democrats recognize the fact that she is dishonest and probably corrupt. All of the evidence is out there for people to read if they do, and I think the more people that do, her voter intensity drops.
We have not seen the evangelical community show up in the last two elections, and I'm hoping they wake up and wise up from their mistake. Do you think they will be a factor in this election cycle? And I got about a minute.
Yeah, absolutely. I believe that in their hearts, they know that they're called to be good citizens in whatever circumstances they find themselves. And I think that trying to vote for morally upstanding people is something they should consider important, and I think a lot are. And I think you will see that a lot actually do turn out and will vote their consciences, and the results are going to be what I've been predicting.
I'd like to talk to you on the other side of the debate this coming Sunday.
Well, just give Sandy a call.
All right. Let me say to our viewers and listeners, the website is greatnewsforamerica.com. That's also the title of the book, Great News for America. He makes 10 predictions in there, and they're pretty strong predictions. And I think you need to get a copy of this book or go to the website, greatnewsforamerica.com. Dr. Lameiro, thank you, friend. Let's see what happens. Your 5-second advice to Donald Trump Sunday night.
Go on the offense. You never lose on the defense. Skip those silly, trivial things. Go on the offense.
There you go. Nice to see you again. Thanks, my friend.
God bless.
You too. God bless you. We'll see you next time on Focus Today.